Gaetz. Hi, Brooke.
Hey, good morning, guys. That's right. So House Speaker Mike Johnson confirmed Matt Gaetz resigned from Congress shortly after Trump tapped him to be the next attorney general. His resignation comes days before the House Ethics Committee was set to vote on releasing a potentially damaging report about him. The committee has been investigating the now former congressman for years for allegations including sex trafficking, drug use, and accepting bribes, all of which he denies. Gaetz immediately faced some opposition from senators on both sides of the aisle, with two Republican Senate sources telling Fox News he will never get confirmed.
It's just kind of like a God tier kind of trolling, just to trigger a meltdown.
Kind of wonder whether he could actually get confirmed even by the House Republican Conference based upon at least the stories for the last couple of years.
I think what we can tell you right now is that we always allow the president to have the benefit of the doubt, but we still have to do our role in terms of due diligence.
I don't know enough about him in terms of his ethics charges, and that's why I say it's a somewhat interesting pick. We'll have to see how that all unfolds.
President-elect Trump also selecting former Democratic Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard to be the Director of National Intelligence, and he officially nominated Florida Senator Marco Rubio for Secretary of State.
It's a tremendous honor to the president would place his confidence in me in a position of such importance. It's also a tremendous responsibility.
Talked a little bit about the work that needs to be done, and I was grateful and honored to accept President Trump's offer to serve our country and support his objective to defend the safety, security, and freedom of the American people.
So far, Trump has made selections for 16 key administration roles as he rapidly lays out his plans for his incoming administration.
And there's no turning back, you understand?
Yes, I do.
Criminal officers, get your hands in the air! All this stuff is impounded. You got a warrant? Sure, here's my warrant. Oh!
The better half of the 20s was a period of excessive sodium for the corrupt left-wing Marxists. The president and attorney general created an oversupply of bootleg liberal tears. Project 2025 demanded they be destroyed.
I got a salt shaker, okay, of liberal tear. We're going to get gallons of liberal tear. We're going to get the entire barrels. Where do we purchase those? Should we make those available in the store? Do I have to go to Bourbon Alley in Tennessee and Kentucky in order to get them? Where do I get me a barrel of liberal tears? Jerry, we got to get some. We got to get some in the studio. We got to get a bigger studio. We're going to have to get a warehouse because of the Matt Gaetz pick. I've never seen anything like it. It is God tier level trolling to own the libs, and it's a genius move, and we're going to explain all of it today on the program. Today is Thursday, November 14th, 2024. President Trump, cabinet picks are causing apoplectic levels of meltdown in D.C. I hope you got your skis and your poles because you go sledding on the amount of salt that is currently being mined in Washington, D.C. But again, there's a method to the madness. We've done a lot of phone calls over the last 24 hours, and we have the true rationale for all of this. And we're going to tell you today, exclusively on the program. We know what they're doing. We know what's happening. And it's so smart. It's unbelievably smart. Ladies and gentlemen, White House still calls Trump a threat to democracy. Meanwhile, Joe Biden's meeting with Hitler, fascist garbage in the White House, and all grins from ear to ear. Even Jill Biden grinning from ear to ear. Man, that pardon process for Hunter must be moving along swiftly right now. We'll do all of the aftermath of Joe Biden meeting with Donald Trump yesterday in the White House. Tim Burchett joins the program, the great representative from Tennessee. Maybe he can tell us about bourbon production there. Also, Mike Benz joining the program to talk to us about Matt Gaetz and the horrors that Matt Gaetz poses to the deep state. Also, Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch joining the show. What a frickin' stacked show, baby. We are here for it, and we are ready to rock. I'm your boy, Benny. This is The Benny Show. Ladies and gentlemen, we have seemingly been live nonstop for the better part of the last, I don't know, Klein, year of our lives. It's been amazing. We've had a great time, and we will be at Mar-a-Lago tomorrow to bring you more interesting news as it shakes up from inside of this, the restoration of America, the renaissance of this moment. I would say probably the best R word to use would be revival, actually, of what's going on. And you got to have energy for a revival, right? You got to be able to fill your cups. We fill our cups with Blackout Coffee. Blackout Coffee is our favorite coffee brand here on this program. It is exclusively the only coffee that we use inside the Johnson household because, well, it supports the state of Florida, which, boy, little birdies tell us some interesting things about Laura Trump being senator. Hey, ALX, which show did we hear that on first? Which program first pushed Laura Trump for senator? Pretty interesting to follow who's above and beyond the curve, who's setting the trends around here. It's exciting, and we do it for you, ladies and gentlemen. We must have the energy to do it. Our Blackout Coffee keeps us going, 100% American, 0% grift. Ladies and gentlemen, blackoutcoffee.com/Benny. Get the energy to fight the communists. We've been telling you this for a while. We have the energy to fight the commies, and we can win. We must have that energy. They are fueled by demonic energy. We are fueled by the sweet, delicious caffeine of Blackout Coffee. Promo code Benny. That's blackoutcoffee.com/Benny. Promo code Benny. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Matt Gaetz announced yesterday. This was a shock move to many. This was a shock move because Matt Gaetz wasn't on anybody's list. And I want to talk about very briefly what we've heard over the last 24 hours internally from those close to President Trump about this decision and this move. Because it is genius in 3 different ways. We're going to talk about every single one of them exclusively, and we're going to describe what the future holds for a Matt Gaetz appointment as Attorney General. Let's begin. Matt Gaetz, and we have an entire compilation of Matt Gaetz owning the deep state. We'll get to it. But I want to, off the top here, tell you the breaking news, all right? We can pop up, feel free to put up the article about Matt Gaetz' selection. Bold move! Just hours after Trump made his shock cabinet pick for Attorney General, Matt Gaetz resigns from Congress. Says, I'm out. Burn the ships. I'm going in, right? It's a genius move. Normally, everybody keeps their position, right? Like Marco Rubio, Secretary of State nominee, he's staying in the Senate until he's confirmed, right? Laura Trump won't be able to fill that seat until Marco Rubio is confirmed and he's out of that seat, vacates it. We have news on the Laura Trump stuff in just a moment. But I want to talk about Matt Gaetz. I want to talk about the genius of this, and I want to break down what we've heard internally and explain why this is such a genius move. There is no greater hive of scum and villainy than the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. It's a place for sneering Democrat superdonor lawyers to do around, right, and then to scoot on off to 7- and 8-figure salaries at major law firms. It is effectively a Democrat super nexus of lawfare against Republicans. Can you put up the J.D. Vance tweet, please? The tweet last night was just sent me. It's perfect. Perfect J.D. Vance tweet on Matt Gaetz' nomination. So, in order to end that system, and that system broke all of Donald Trump's last attorney generals. All of Donald Trump's last attorney generals were crippled and withered by that supercell of Democrat lawyers. The DOJ is just this impenetrable iron dome of Democrat activism and vicious, seething, venomous lawfare. Truly a pit of snakes and vipers. You ever seen Raiders of the Lost Ark? Indiana Jones, over the tomb, right, inside of Egypt, and he's sitting there and he's looking down. It's just snakes everywhere. That's it. That's what Trump does when he lifts up the stones and he looks down into the DOJ. J.D. Vance. The main issue with Matt Gaetz is that he used his office to persecute his political opposition and authorized federal agents to harass parents who were peacefully protesting at school board meetings. Oh, wait, actually, that's Merrick Garland, the current Attorney General. It's a perfect tweet, okay? Let's call it what it is. It's a perfect tweet. 300,000 likes, 58,000 reposts, 10 million views. Well done, J. Vance. But how do they get away with it? How does Merrick Garland get away with raiding Donald Trump, with ordering deadly force to raid Donald Trump? How does he get away with it? Because the system is built on the backbone of left-wing activism. It is designed to foment and to attack, like an antibody, anybody who is a populist, who's a Republican, who supports President Trump. That is the nature of the system. By appointing Matt Gaetz to be Attorney General, the head of that system, what you are doing is you are completely realigning a system that is built on zeros into ones. You flip the system on its head. Think about it in binary terms. If there's only ones and zeros in binary code, you can only be one or the other. If the top man inside of your system is not your number, how much quicker are you likely to self-deport, to eject out of that system? Matt Gaetz is seen as Florida man to these people. They are disgusted by him. They are sickened by his overt populist nature, by the fact that he stands against the machine. He's a dismantler of machines. He breaks the wheel. He's not part of the wheel. He breaks the wheel. They view him as lowbrow, as somebody who they are better than, because he didn't work at like these white shoe law firms, right, that they all worked at. They are disgusted by his very presence. If you put somebody like that as the boss of these people, then they'll leave. It's a self-cleaning mechanism. They're already starting to leave. We have this Politico article about how DOJ is beginning to clean itself. They're already terrified. They're already planning. They're already heading for the doors. Trump sending this signal beyond the confirmation of Matt Gaetz, which will happen, by the way. Beyond the confirmation of Matt Gaetz, Trump simply sending this signal that they're done effing around inside of this system will cause so many that are parasitic rot inside of our DOJ to simply resign. And you're welcome to do that. It's actually quite hard to fire federal workers, the ones who are there as careers, not as politicos. The political workers can be fired, but the careers get in there and they get little unions, they get protections, they get lawyers. But they can resign at any time. They can leave at any time. The prospect of having Matt Gaetz be their boss and having to answer to him is like smelling salts for these people. It's like cross to a vampire, like holy water on a demon. They get burned by it. Their smug elitism will not allow them to answer to somebody like Matt Gaetz. And so on its face, prima facie, this is a genius move because it will expedite the exodus out of the DOJ. Here's the article. Trump's return has some in the Justice Department heading for the exits. In this article, they talk about how lawyers at the DOJ are shaking with fear, are seething with rage. This is terminology used, are terrified. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how you begin the cleaning of the system. Let them do the job for you. Let them eject. That's step number one, okay? Step number two with Matt Gaetz. Moving down the line as to why this is a genius pick. Matt Gaetz has been the victim of government espionage, government spying. He has been the victim of an entrapment scheme that has been well documented, where agents of the FBI have attempted to extort Matt Gaetz, put it up, extort Matt Gaetz and his family for tens of millions of dollars in order to avoid prosecution of himself and his family. If this sounds familiar, well, it's exactly what they did to Trump. Different pieces on the chessboard, same play. Reminder, Trump had zero legal problems before he decided to run for president. When Trump decided to run for president in November, late November of 2022, soon after, you were getting mugshots, charges, press conferences all around the country. We have it on very good authority that President Trump there were signals to President Trump that if he decided not to run for president, he'd just go off and be like a billionaire on his beaches for the rest of his life. Play golf in peace. No, nothing will happen to you. They did the same thing to Matt Gaetz. This is what they've done to Matt. And is it not the victims of the system, the victims of a broken system that are the best at reforming it because of the chip on their shoulder? Businessman pleads guilty to $25 million extortion attempt against Matt Gaetz and his family. This was an operation run by the FBI. This was an operation ordered by the enemies of Matt Gaetz inside of the federal government. And now Matt Gaetz is going to be their boss. How glorious is that? What a wonderful way to make sure that the wheel is broken than to have a personal vendetta. Right? Yeah. Think about every great superhero or villain origin story, right? Childhood trauma. This is it. This is the trauma. Matt Gaetz is a victim, much like Donald Trump. So you have a shared burden with both of them. A shared grudge that you wouldn't have with a Jeff Sessions or, God forbid, a Bill Barr, right? These people who acted against Donald Trump. They're angry at the Matt Gaetz pick. They're seething. They're screaming like demons at the Matt Gaetz pick because they know that they have no leverage. They know that this is an actual legitimate outsider who they have attempted through illegal means. This is illegal means. ALX, what are the charges here? There were charges brought against these pseudo agents of the government in their attempts to extort Matt Gaetz. They illegally tried to destroy Matt Gaetz' family. It is by every definition, from a landscape perspective, from a wartime perspective, this is precisely what they did to Donald Trump. Matt Gaetz has the exact same axe to grind. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a genius move for a third reason. The tertiary reason why this is genius is because it takes all the heat off of the other choices. Now that Trump has chosen Matt Gaetz, everybody else gets through the Senate with flying colors. I'm not saying that he's a patsy or anything, but I'm saying that all of the anger and rage of the machine will be trained on Matt, which he's used to and he's built for. Matt Gaetz is a friend of the show. He did an hour with us live when we had evacuated from the hurricane because we were in his district. He just came over and we chatted live. Those clips are going thermonuclear because Matt Gaetz talked about Epstein, UFOs. Matt Gaetz talked about the Diddy list. And guess what? As AG, he'd be in charge of all of it. The FBI answers to the Attorney General. The FBI has all the Epstein tapes. They have the Diddy list. They have all the videos. They have it all. It's all sitting there in a locked box. And Matt Gaetz would be in charge of it all. Well, that's interesting. So the people accusing Matt Gaetz of doing untoward things, turns out that they're the ones who are guilty of what they're accusing Matt Gaetz of. Isn't that interesting? The genius move is that now this effectively opens up the floodgates for Trump, for every single Trump pick as Matt Gaetz will be the man standing out front, absorbing all of the wrath and all of the, all of the fire, rage, and hatred of the machine. It's perfect. It's perfect. It's a perfect strategy. So that's 1, 2, 3 as to why Matt Gaetz is a really, really smart pick. Here's a warning, a bit of a warning from our show before we jump into some of the the media ecosystem and how they're responding to this. All of the right people are furious about this. And all of the right people are celebrating this. This is how we looked at the J.D. Vance pick. We don't pretend to be the closest friends with J.D. Vance. What we told you at the time of the J.D. Vance pick when we were live at the RNC was all of the right people are on his side, right? I mean, he was a very young senator. He'd been on the show, but we didn't have any time to really like have a personal connection with J.D., right? And so what we said was all of the right people are backing him. Don Jr. came on the program, Tucker, Bongino, Charlie, David Sachs, Elon Musk, all of those people backed JD. So we said, done. That's all we need, right? Done. All the right people are backing Matt Gaetz. All of the wrong people are seething with rage, much like they did with JD, over Matt Gaetz. And just a quick, fascinating little anecdote here. According to many exit polls, JD Vance and Alex, see if you can grab up. I know that this was a news article a couple of days ago. J.D. Vance was seen as the most net positive of anybody running on any presidential ticket this year. Remember when they called him weird? Remember when they said it was the dumbest pick ever? That was all a psyop. It wasn't real. J.D. Vance, according to exit polling and according to scientific, algorithmic data and information collection from American voters, was seen as the largest net positive American politician running on any ticket this year. So it was all a psyop. It wasn't real. They're running the same operation against Gaetz for the same reason, actually. They're terrified of the effectiveness of this man. So those are the top 3 reasons why Matt Gaetz is a genius pick. Self-cleaning mechanism at the DOJ, just the fact that Trump would even dare put someone like Matt Gaetz in charge, a 1 in charge of a bunch of zeros, the binary system collapses. It's like a computer program. The entire thing collapses. They all self-deport, right? It's a genius move. Tom Homan. They're going to do the same thing with welfare sub-programs. Once you cut off the welfare programs, then criminal aliens, many of them, will self-deport. That's a matter of fact. They don't speak the language of the nation. They don't have skill. They have no skilled labor. They'll self-deport. It becomes a very easy process. Matt Gaetz would be the equivalent of cutting off the welfare programs at the DOJ. Number 2, Matt Gaetz is somebody who obviously is going to absorb so much of the fire that would be trained on other Donald Trump appointees. And he's going to open up the floodgates for MAGA to wash into the system. This is precisely why this is a genius pick, but moving down the line. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are a United States senator and you just had a election last week, oh, and can you put that up, Klein? I just want to give you guys, we'll always back up everything we say here with evidence. We'll show you the hard data and the hard information. A remarkable CNN exit poll found that J.D. Vance is actually the most popular man on a presidential ticket this year. After he was selected as VP, and there's the actual favorables and unfavorables. Yeah, please. After he was selected as VP nominee, an absolute barrage of media attacks smeared him, creating poor favorability ratings initially. His amazing campaign performance sent those numbers soaring back on his way to becoming now one of the most popular politicians in America. So J.D. Vance voted, according to our sources, for Tim Scott yesterday in the Senate leadership race. Yet, nonetheless, the swamp scum were able to snake in their candidate in John Thune. You have heard I have said my piece on it. I will say this from a perspective of this program. President Trump didn't weigh in on this race. He didn't say you must vote Scott. President Trump stepped back, and that we're going to defer, quite frankly, to that move, and say, all right, if you're stepping back, then there are other systems at play here, so let's let it play out. But we'll be watching, and here's one of the things we're going to be watching. And this is Donald Trump calling their bluff. So as soon as the leadership vote happened and John Thune got it on the third ballot, John Thune calls Trump, and Trump says, you son of a bitch, you better be on board with my appointments, and you better be ready to rock. I want recess appointments. I want them now. John Thune says, yes, of course. Otherwise, expect a Truth Social post about how you're a rhino. And we will destroy. We will primary you, and we will run you out of town. We now have the muscle and the capacity and the money to do it. It's no longer idle threats. We can actually do these things now. It's really exciting. So that phone call happens, and as soon as Thune says, yes, totally, we're on board, click. Then the next thing, Trump goes, okay, send Matt Gaetz. Boom, Matt Gaetz. Most important appointment, here you go. You better get ready. So John Thune pledges his fealty to the Trump appointments, and then Trump goes, all right, here we go. Here's going to be the most important and consequential appointment. We have the records of every single senator, and many of them Republican, voting to confirm Merrick Garland, voting to confirm Alejandro Mayorkas. We have you on the record, scum. There are dozens of Republican senators, the squishy ones, right? Murkowski, Collins, McConnell. There are dozens of Republican senators who voted for Merrick Garland. Do you know this? Pop up the votes. We have them. There are dozens of Republican senators who voted for Alejandro Mayorkas, somebody who's going to be imprisoned by the end of all of this as the world's greatest human smuggler. Republican senators said, yes, absolutely, we love you. So the Matt Gaetz vote alone will show you exactly who needs to be ripped out root and stem from the Republican Senate. Because right now you already have like senators mulling like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure. So there's some reports that maybe there's going to be like at least 10 Republican senators that'll vote against Gaetz. You're already seeing it. So it's pretty unique. Here we go. Here's the list. Here are all the Republican senators who voted for Merrick Garland. Same guy who ordered the deadly raids on Mar-a-Lago. And I say deadly because they had authorized use. They had kill orders. So these senators voted for Merrick Garland. How are you possibly going to go home to your very Republican red states and explain how you voted for Merrick Garland but against Matt Gaetz? It's not possible. It's not tenable. So this is the last vote of your political career if you stand against President Trump's Attorney General. And a final word on this. What President Trump needs is somebody who's going to be like a neural link with him. That's why we sort of set up like the lawfare and the attacks against Matt and his family. Like that's why we talk about this, is because you need to have the same motivations. Famously, Eric Holder called himself the wingman of Barack Obama. You must know that your attorney general is going to share your same gut. They'll get you, right? They'll come after you like Nixon if you're on the phone telling Matt Gaetz what to do and who to prosecute. Okay? They'll come after you. It's a no-no. Libs do it all the time. Joe Biden clearly did it day and night. But it's not something we recommend, okay? You're technically not supposed to do that. And so you have to have somebody that has the same fire in their belly, the same gunpowder in their gut as you do. And that's Matt Gaetz. Listen, we've seen what happens when you have like a limp-wristed, cocky Jeff Sessions in there who recused himself without even seeing the evidence of Russiagate. They literally were able to psyop Jeff Sessions into recusal of the Russiagate hoax without even seeing any evidence. That's weakness. Of course, Bill Barr is just a grotesque organ of the superstate and should never be trusted ever again. based on what he did with President Trump, along with Pompeo, Nikki Haley. None of these people will be in the next administration, thank God. Trump learned his lessons, and that's what you get is Matt Gaetz, a Neuralink. On this program, we have one. It's called ALX AI. We often talk about our executive producer, ALX. He and I have worked together for so long, we literally have the exact same thoughts. Okay? It's weird. It's what happens when you work with somebody. It's what happens when you have the same motivations and you work on and build systems and processes together. Is it just click, right? And so this is a Donald Trump version of that inside of justice. And that's what you want, right? Because trust me, the next impeachment hoax will be, oh, did Donald Trump pick up his phone and call Matt Gaetz and say, go after this person who rigged an election, right? Go after this cartel. Go after George Soros, which they should and must do. George Soros and his organizations break so many laws. You want to talk about true foreign interference in our nation? That's where you start. That and criminal alien illegal voting, which of course Matt Gaetz is gonna. He don't got any more friends. He doesn't have any. He has a lot of friends, but he doesn't have any friends in D.C. This is the way that you break these systems. You break them from the top down. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's our full-throated endorsement of Matt Gaetz. This is, ladies and gentlemen, how it works. And this is why it's a genius move. We are joined now by somebody who I am very excited to hear his take on this, because he has been one of the true warriors for real justice in this nation. Well, quite frankly, for as long as I've been following politics, the true man, myth and legend and warrior in our nation's capital, who've stood against the beast many, many times and against the Leviathan. Now with the wind at his back, the great Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch joins the program live now. Tom, you're a very humble man, and so I'm not going to even say that stuff with you on camera, all right? Because I know it'd make you blush. So.
I think you can go on a few minutes, actually.
Okay. Yes, I've long awaited your take on this pick. Now, we've asked multiple times on the program in months past, what should a Trump attorney general do? And so the table is set. It's yours, Tom. Your take on the Matt Gaetz selection.
You know, I've always been asked, who should the attorney general should be? And I'd be like, I don't know. But I do know what attitude they need to have, right? And what approach they need to have. And no matter who it is, as long as they have the right approach, that's great. And so he had a lot of choices. And Gaetz fits into that mold of having the right approach, understanding, from my perspective, the dire threat to our constitutional republic from this compromised, conflicted, corrupted Justice Department that has spent not just the last 4 years, but I would argue the last almost 10 years trying to jail the regime's political opponent, the top political opponent, Donald Trump, through spying, sedition, conspiracy, smears, raids, gag orders. And as we see with the Secret Service fails, which in my view were purposeful, they literally were trying to get him killed, this regime. So someone like Matt Gaetz is the type of approach, he has the approach that's necessary to deal with this Justice Department. And all these senators, a vote for Matt Gaetz, that's just like the lowest possible bar for what's required. They need to not only support Matt Gaetz and whoever the Justice Department Attorney General is going to be from Trump, but also the reform effort. This Justice Department cannot continue in its current form. The FBI, I think, is irredeemably corrupt, and I don't think it can be saved. So we need the Congress to get on board not only with the appointments, but with supporting the rule of law and making sure these agencies are never able to do what they've done to this country ever again.
Something that was brought up in my timeline, I know I texted you about it, Tom, was I had totally memory hold the fact that you were raided, and that they came after you in these last couple of years. Can you unpack that in the context of the motivation, like a Matt Gaetz with the extortion scheme for $25 million run by the FBI against his family, that they had to drop the charges, right? They had to put people in prison for it. Like, what a good common cause motivation to have as you are the victim of this government tyranny.
Yeah, I just tweeted out. I don't know if you saw the tweet. I want justice. I mean, I'm at home recovering from skin cancer. It was at the end of 2022, just before Smith was appointed. I get the knock at the door from the FBI, handing me a subpoena. Pure retaliation because Judicial Watch was blowing the whistle on their abuse of Trump, highlighting the fake charges they were bringing against him at the time. And we were literally suing the Justice Department. And I ended up having to go before the Jack Smith grand juries, faced 3 prosecutors as a witness, only as a witness. They didn't even want to talk to me informally. They pulled that invitation away as soon as Jack Smith came in. Completely corrupt. And we spent 4 hours arguing politics before the grand jury. Which, as I've often said, it was like being on an MSNBC panel for 4 hours. But the point being, once you get a knock at the door from the FBI, every knock since, is that the FBI again? Is that the regime again? Yeah. And of course, I'm the head of Judicial Watch. I'm one of the most effective, largest government watchdog groups in the world. And they come after us. And watch if they went after the ACLU, or as you point out, the George Soros Foundation, for engaging in purely First Amendment protected activity. So I want justice. These folks can't be trusted to police a crosswalk, let alone manage law enforcement nationally for us. It's purely political. They're at best often incompetent, and at worst partisan and leftist. There are tens of thousands of James Comeys in the Justice Department, and if maybe they leave on their own. Otherwise, they should be doing Judicial Watch FOIA work. That's all they should be allowed to do.
This is one of, I think, the greatest strokes of genius in the Matt Gaetz decision is that people will self-deport, for lack of a better term, from the Justice Department. And Matt Gaetz is like a smelling salt or cross to a vampire, holy water to these people. They're so elitist, and they're so smug, and they're so sneering at people like Matt Gaetz, who represents his district and Panhandle and represents populism. They would, Tom, these people. They would never dare. Their blackened consciences would never allow them to answer to somebody like Matt Gaetz. They'll leave.
Did you see this Politico headline? It's like something you would have written, Benny.
We got it right
here. They said they're petrified, and this is literally the headline from Politico. You thought DOJ staffers were in full-blown freak-out before. Justice Department lawyers cannot compute that Matt Gaetz could be their new boss. They're now tracking your language in describing what Trump is doing to the deep state. And I tell you, I'm not just concerned about. I want to tell your listeners about this and everyone in Trump world as well. I'm concerned about what they're doing now. If I were, first of all, Trump technically still is under investigation by this FBI and Justice Department. You can be sure, or I would guess, based on what they did last time, that they're concocting, if not already proceeding with sham charge investigations against him and people around him. And no matter who is the attorney general, they're going to try to set up circumstances to force criminal investigations, special counsel crises and such, to target Trump, his family, and important folks in Trump world like Elon Musk. These folks won't go away, and that's why you need someone who is from the get-go going to say, I'm not playing your game, and I'm shutting it down wherever I see the abuse immediately. Because typically the AG for Republicans are institutionalists, right? They're conservative in the bad sense of the word. We need reformers and house cleaners.
Yes, I will. I didn't really quite understand what was happening at the time, Tom, when I watched Jeff Sessions recuse himself without seeing any evidence for Russiagate. He just said, because he drank Smirnoff vodka one time in college, that was enough to force a recusal based on just the din, the banging of the cymbals of Washington, D.C. media. That's weakness. and it can't be tolerated any longer.
And remember, it was his deputy who shepherded through this anti-Trump effort. And Trump needs to be sure he's not appointing any seditionists, because that's what happened last time. There were folks he appointed and he was working with on a day-to-day basis that engaged in casual sedition against what his wishes were as the only elected president of the United States, in terms of the sense of whose views counted and should have been followed.
Yes. So, Tom, as somebody who I think off the top here, I can safely say endorses Matt Gaetz in this selection and would like to see this pushed through, and you have a lot of pull in the Senate, obviously, and great respect.
Yeah. It's an inspired choice, Benny. It's an inspired choice.
You also share common cause with Donald Trump and Matt Gaetz, as you have been a victim of Jack Smith and lawfare over the last 4 years. And so I'd love to hear, what would you like to see happen to Jack Smith now that he's resigning in disgrace and his office is being boarded up at the very moment? Would you like to see an investigation into his practices?
Jack Smith and all the other abusers at the Justice Department and the FBI and other agencies should be investigated for the quite evident abuses of power they engaged in to target Trump. When you use your power to target a citizen and use the color of law to try to deprive them of their civil rights, that's a crime. And that's the type of investigation that should proceed against the Justice Department. And frankly, Matt Gaetz, the Justice Department shouldn't be investigating itself. If I were President Trump, I would appoint a special counsel that reports to him only to investigate the deep state Justice Department and have Matt put the yellow tape around the department headquarters to mark it as a crime scene.
I know you know Matt well. I'm not going to ask you to obviously reveal anything that's private, but what would you like to see Matt Gaetz do once confirmed in the Senate? And I see this confirmation process. I mean, if Matt Gaetz goes up there and performs, I think he's going to get it. I think all this doomsaying of, 20 Republican senators are going to vote against him. No, bro, we have you on the record voting for Merrick Garland. This is the last vote you'll ever take in your political life if you vote against Matt Gaetz and for Merrick Garland. So I think Trump has him over a barrel. I think Gaetz will be confirmed. What do you want to see happen?
What I want to see happen is transparency and accountability. I want the Justice Department to be severely curtailed in terms of its power and size. I want the FBI to be checked in ways so that it's never a threat to the public again. And if it means basically pawning off its various function to other agencies, I would not rely on Justice Department employees in Washington, the civil servant bureaucracy to accomplish any of this. This has to be an outsider game. The Justice Department thinks it's above the law. It thinks it's outside the power and control of the White House and the presidency. And, it's interesting. I remember talking to a senior White House official during the Trump years, and not someone who, one of the folks who went anti-Trump, right? And he said to me, you know what, Tom, one of these things we need to do after this is all over, we need to bring the Justice Department back inside our government. And what a good insight that was. However far off the reservation he went subsequently. But that's the way the Justice Department operates. They pretend that they're not subject to constitutional authorities of the president, and they need to be disabused of that notion.
Yes. You've seen those. I mean, we've watched them together. You've seen these sneering congressional testimonies of Christopher Wray. Sorry, got to leave on my private jet you all pay for, right? Don't have time for you. You can see the behavior when Matt Gaetz. Here's one of the most viral clips we've ever published. Tom, is Matt Gaetz talking about the Hunter Biden laptop with the head of cyber at the FBI, and the head of cyber at the FBI is like, "F you. You're not allowed to ask about that. I'm not going to answer any questions about that." That behavior is despicable. That is not the way our system's designed.
Yeah, and he's got to open up the books, right? Open up the files. I mean, we fight the Justice Department to get the time of the day from the Justice Department. They're so secretive, and he's got to take a different approach. And we all know what the deep state said. Oh, you can't open this up. We won't be able to investigate and abuse anyone else again in the future. Yeah. Well, that's an endorsement to open it all up. And we faced challenges with the first Trump administration under Sessions and then Barr getting information out of the Justice Department And let's hope that ends now, and they finally understand that transparency is the friend of reform.
Yes. I mean, why would you protect the world's foremost pederast? Why? In what universe are we? What? Give me a moral rationale as to why the American public shouldn't see every name on the Epstein list and every name on the Diddy tapes. Give me a rationale.
We were in court in the first Trump administration, and his appointees over at the State Department and Justice Department would come in. These were people that pretended to work for Trump but ignored his views, and they came in and said everything Hillary did on the emails was fine.
Is fine, meaning it was legal?
Yeah, and that Judicial Watch should not get anything.
Really? So they argued against you.
They argued,
to protect Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, the Trump and State Department and Justice Department are, basically argue with us, and they defended Hillary. Was just something that I know probably set Trump off. But that's the reality he understood was happening, right? Yeah. And he's trying to change that with appointees like Matt Gaetz. And I tell you, between Tulsi, Matt, and Pete, each one deserves an hour discussion about how significant and historic the appointments are. Pete is the most significant appointment in the history of the agency. And I think Matt fairly can be put into that category for DOJ. Tulsi, she's going to be bringing down the house in terms of her skepticism of the deep state and the intelligence community. I mean, these folks have tried to destroy our republic. They've attacked our sitting president. I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat. It should concern you when the elected president becomes victimized and targeted and undermined by the bureaucratic mandarins that think they know it all. And as far as they're concerned, they don't even want elections. I mean, we kind of saw that with the coup cabal with Biden. They didn't want a primary. And sick. I mean, heck, there's still election counting still going on in these left-wing states.
Yeah. I call it a revival of the American spirit. And Tom,
it's a restoration. It's the restoration of the republic if we work it right.
So, Tom, you've been on the right side of this, fighting a very lonely battle at times, quite frankly, standing up against the Leviathan, and the Leviathan came for you. And you won, Tom. So it's awesome. Everybody follow Tom over here. One of these days I'm going to join Tom's gym, okay? And I'll be able to get a flex like this. And everybody go follow. I mean, 2.8 million. We're going to get to 3 by Christmas, Tom.
That's right. And congratulations to you. You've really come into your own, and it just shows you that when you tell the truth and you're persistent and you're consistent, and you try to do more and better of what people want, the rewards come. People are thirsting for leadership, Benny. And, you're bringing it. Charlie's bringing it. Bannon's bringing it. You don't have to be in politics to provide the leadership. I mean, Judicial Watch, we have millions of supporters. I just love it.
And here's Tom's book, Rights and Freedoms in
It's a great book. It's a great book. If you want to know what Trump needs to do, read it. It's a great book.
There we go. You find it everywhere. Tom, you are the man and the OG, and we're thankful to call you friend. Godspeed, sir.
Thank you, Benny. God bless you. Thank you.
Oh, man. The freakouts. The demon scream from Washington, D.C. I've never heard it so loud. I don't think I've ever heard it louder, with the exception of one moment. There was one moment. It's called The Lore. Okay, this is our supervillain origin story. It's called The Lore. We are actually the launching point of many supervillain origin stories, or superhero origin stories, either way. There's one moment in this show's history where a Tennessee congressman came sauntering out of the program and decided one day that he was just gonna light a cigar and blow the whole place up. The barrel of TNT and a fuse. And hot damn, did he do it. The great congressman from Tennessee, Tim Burchett, came on our program and said, you know what? You get out of line in Congress, You might find yourself naked in some hotel room that you don't recognize, and somebody in the morning says, well, we got your photos. Ooh, doggy. Did that ever cause a little bit of a kick in the hornet's nest, as it were, in Washington, D.C.? So somebody who knows exactly what it's like to be in Matt Gaetz's shoes and is one of the closest allies of Matt Gaetz in Congress, the great congressman from Tennessee, Tim Burchett, joins the program live now. Ooh, Congressman, you gone done it. You gone done it all over again with the Matt Gaetz pick, brother.
Yeah, that gum, I saw you said special guest, and I thought, man, who's he? I thought, I got to get on this show. When are they going to put me on? And then it's me. Thanks, guys, bro. Hey, I just want to tell you how proud I am of you, dude. I mean, you don't need anybody kissing your butt, but man, I'm telling you, that your show has blown up. I mean, I'm out. I have these little rural counties and country work folks, hardworking folks. They love me. Hey, man, I seen you on the Benny show, and I'm like, right on, sister.
Well,
I just want to tell you, man, keep it up. Keep it up.
Hey, you killed it on Sean Ryan's show. He's an ally of ours and just awesome. And
good dude.
We call it Burchett Mentum here on the program. And so talk to us about what we believe is possibly your best friend in Congress, Matt Gaetz. I assume you full-throatedly endorse his nomination for AG. Yeah. Talk us through it, Congressman.
Well, he was with Trump over the weekend, I guess. And, and Matt and I talk a lot. Him and his wife, Ginger, and I are friends. My wife actually loaned Ginger a dress for some fancy thing down there at Mar-a-Lago. And, my wife texted me. She said, oh, honey, she said, now you've lost your only friend in Congress. I'm like, yeah, well, I guess I have to find me a new friend now. But Matt, maybe we're unlikely friends, but, he always sits with me on center's row, and he's always very supportive of me. And him and Ginger are kind. I don't get out much. I never even, heck, I can't even spell Uber. And they hooked me up on an Uber and took me out for tacos, and they've been great. And I've got it on my phone, so I'm very hip, like all the youngsters are. But no, I'm just going to miss him incredibly. I can't tell you. But I'm so pleased because they are exploding. I mean, the moderates and the lefts and some of the conservatives, frankly, are scratching their head. But Trump gets it. He gets it. It's not just the top. It's that 3 or 4 layers deep, that Washington sewer. Everybody wants to call it a freaking swamp. And a swamp's something pretty cool, frogs. It's an ecosystem. Animals live out of it. Washington, D.C. is a sewer. It all flows in and nothing flows out. There is an absence of air and sunshine. And that's why you have the anaerobic decomposition, the stench of Washington, D.C. And Matt Gaetz will bring some light to it. They're going to start trashing him and his family. And he knows that. But oh man, I can't tell you how happy I am, because Matt, the one thing his enemies will tell you, and I had dinner with some of his enemies last night, is that he is so calculated. He is, everybody out here is playing checkers or playing pool. I'm just looking at hitting the cue ball into that number 1 ball. Matt is on the 3rd or 4th, where it's going to end up, where it's going to be. I've never seen anybody with the analytical mind he has, and I'm honored to call him my friend. I couldn't be happier for him, and we need to put the pressure on the Senate to do the right thing on this thing, because he is the man.
Just wanting to tell our audience that buzzer in the background is the votes that get called in Congress. And Congressman, of course, if there is any type of pressure.
That was letting us know there's going to be a vote, and that they will call us for a vote. So we're about 3 deep on that stupid. I don't care.
It's like psychological torture, man. If you were in Guantanamo Bay, just put that buzzer over my cell. I'll tell you anything. Yeah. I think this is why they don't like Matt Gaetz, because Matt Gaetz will actually speak the truth. This is why many Republicans have weak, limp wrists when it comes to voting for Matt Gaetz, and are starting to get cold feet, as they say. Can you stiffen up their spines, Congressman, and tell us why Matt Gaetz is necessary for the DOJ?
Right.
And maybe you can weave in some anecdotes of what you've seen working with him yourself.
Yeah. Matt Gaetz is fearless. He loves this country. He is loyal to this country. He is loyal to John, and better than that, he's loyal to Donald J. Trump, because Trump doesn't put anybody in these. Now, the first go around, it was just so big. I don't think even he grasped that these folks would be crooked. You know, I was like to say, crooked as a dog's leg. But some of those people, they turned against our country. Behind, you know, you talk your buddy there from Judicial Watch, big fan of his. He's not naturally as buff as I am. I get it. People think I'm on steroids, but I'm naturally this huge. But the truth is that nobody articulates the conservative viewpoint like Matt Gaetz does. He does it from the heart. You see these things. He doesn't have notes because he doesn't. You know, he does not need notes. You give him the subject, and he sits down for a couple of minutes, and that crazy mind of his is tabulating and figuring what needs to be said, what issues need to be brought in. I mean, even on the, you know, he came in at our first UFO thing, and I asked Matt if he would, because we'd gone down to his district, and I remember we sat with the ranking general, and they tried to turn us away. And I just saw the wheels turning in Matt's head, and Matt said, "Let me tell you what's going to happen." And this room, Benny, there's probably 20 people in there, and they had 2 or 3 spooks on the corner that were sitting back there in suits that were not introduced to us. And I leaned over to Matt and I said, "The spooks are getting nervous, brother." And because he just unloaded. And then they told us we weren't going to get to meet these pilots who had seen something. This isn't a show about UFOs, but I just remember this specifically. They adjourned us to another room, which Luna found out was bugged, and we pulled the plug on it. And they brought us a very nice fruit platter, I thought, which was very nice. And so as I was shoveling that, as my daddy would say, like a jackass eating Sawbriars, I was over there eating that. Matt got on the phone, made a couple of calls, and lo and behold, about an hour later, these 3 pilots flew in, still in their flight suits, and then they told us what was going on, and it was explosive. And that, do not ever cross Matt Gaetz, because this went from Eglin Air Force Base to the Pentagon, back to Eglin, and in the course of an hour. And then the general who was in charge of it, he immediately remembered that he'd had a meeting in Tennessee, which I thought was weird, and had to catch his ride there, a car ride, which I thought was really weird. You're at the Eglin Air Force Base. You obviously, I don't know. But anyway, the thing was just all bizarre, but it was because Matt Gaetz was there and his incredible mind. And there's nobody that's going to clean up that rat's nest over there like Matt Gaetz will. The sound you hear in the background is paper shredders and U-Haul vans, because they are getting the hell out of Dodge because they know there's a new sheriff in town, and it's going to go down to every dadgum level, and they better clean their house up, brother, because he is going to be the custodian in charge with the biggest broom in the place.
Matt Gaetz has come on this program just about a month ago and sat with us for an hour. We were in the Panhandle, so Matt and I just let it rip for about 90 minutes. And we talked about UFOs. And we talked about that meeting, and what you're relaying there, something Luna's also told us on the program, was that Matt Gaetz went up against the Pentagon and won in revealing what was actually happening with some of these unidentified flying objects, and or UAPs, I guess is the cool kid way to call them now. And you had a hearing yesterday in Congress about it. I know you were at that hearing. I know this is an issue, big time issue for you. Matt Gaetz also telling us, and this is getting a lot of play right now, Congressman, about the Epstein murder and what actually happened, saying that it was a foreign nation that went and did that. I mean, it'd be really neat to have Matt Gaetz as Attorney General, who could be in charge of the Diddy tapes, in charge, like they're all at the FBI. They're all of the Epstein files and all of the videos, all the hard drives, all the CDs. They're all the FBI. They're all sitting there. And for some reason, a federal agency is protecting some of the foremost powerful pederasts in the entire world, and in keeping the victims quarantined and the villains away from public scrutiny. And I don't, for the life of me, understand why that is, Congressman. And if anything, Matt Gaetz bringing light into that cesspool and rat's nest, snake, viper pit would be wonderful.
Yeah, we're compromised. It goes back to that original premise that I said, for whatever reason. And it may be sex related or whatever, but or job related. You know, I said your girlfriend and your wife probably has a job at one of these big contractors that has the connections. And yes, I did say girlfriend and wife, if you're curious there. And they can keep those separated. And, you know, it's just part of the mechanism up here, the corruptness of this whole town. And we've got to clean it up. And thank goodness Trump won. I mean, man, I was just like, what in the world? I was just going to invest in bullets. And that was going to be about my 401k, as they say, 401ak, I guess I should say. But I just can't believe that happened. I saw the looks on all my liberal colleagues in my conference yesterday when they announced that. And I saw, you know, you see the jealousy first, and then you're like the shock. And then, I'm just sitting there soaking it up. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm just like loving this. And I tell you what, Benny, you better, and you gave a very accurate portrayal of what we could see happen. We could put enough pressure on the United States Senate to confirm Matt Gaetz, or we will not. And then you'll get somebody that not as strong as Matt. There's nobody as strong as Matt, because you got to realize he's taken the fight to them about everything, about the laptops, about the infiltration, you know, what went on January 6th, just every issue there. Who's been on the cutting edge of that? One person, Matt Gaetz. And they're going to try to destroy him. And I tell all my Christian friends out there, you know, I said it in prayer group this morning. I said, please pray for Matt and Ginger, because they're going to unleash everything they have on him, because this is, and the ones hollering the loudest will be the ones that have the most to hide. And they're going to, you know, all the beauty and the independence of this department's going to be ruined. That is a bunch of bull. If anything, Matt will enforce that and enhance that, because we do not have it now. It is weaponized against you and me and the people that think like we do.
Yes. Briefly, Congressman, what's your message to some of the sneering senators who are talking smack against this decision, are rushing to the corporate press to say, oh, how horrified they are about it? Yet here we have a list of all of those senators voting for Merrick Garland. Worse yet, we have a list of them voting for Alejandro Mayorkas to be in charge of the largest child smuggling operation in human history.
Absolutely. I would just tell them, look at what just happened in our elections. There was an overwhelming cry from the public that enough is enough. We do not like the way our country is going. We do not like the people that are trying to lead us down to this abyss. And this is our opportunity to turn history around. It always goes through the same thing. People are you know, they're enslaved or pushed down by government or whatever body it is, and then they revolt, and then they struggle, and then they have a little bit, and then they have relief, and then they flourish and they prosper, and then they start this same old thing of government making more decisions for them and taxing them, and then it starts over again. You get into the enslavement. We have the one time in history of democracy that we can actually slow that clock down and possibly even turn it back. And this is it. This is it. And we cannot allow this moment to pass. And we've got to remind our senators of this huge endorsement of Donald J. Trump. And now the reason the framers gave them 6 years is so that they can get by with more stuff, but not this kind of stuff. We've got to remember that. And we've got to hold them accountable. I hear these people, you know, people are saying, Burchett, I can't believe you didn't vote for, you know, whoever in the Senate that was. Now go back to freaking civics class. You know, I'm in the House. That's the Senate. Educate yourself on what the heck's going on in this country. Know who your U.S. senators are. You don't have to be a jerk, but you contact them when I was in the state legislature, I voted against the Oilers coming to Tennessee. And there was like I think 5 legislators that voted against it. I had 2 phone calls from home, I think 3 actually, that was against it. And that was a groundswell of freaking support. And that was back before Al Gore invented the internet, Benny. Now we got these dadgum cell phones. If you don't know how to use them to text your legislators, ask your grandkids, figure it out, get involved, and let's save our country. I'll leave you with one thing. I know you got to go. And I'm sorry, I've talked too long. Somebody gave me some freaking fancy coffee in a can and I'm jacked up. I'll be doing push-ups out of here. But
we hope you'll be skateboarding, actually.
Yeah, I will be. I'm working on some new skateboards, actually. New idea. Anyway, you heard it first here on the Benny Show. I want to talk about my daddy real quick. Daddy was a World War II Marine, fought in the Pacific, and Peleliu, Okinawa, 1st Marine Division. If you know anything about the Marine Corps, his colonel on Peleliu was a guy named Chesty Puller. And I remember when Bill Clinton won the White House, he was legitimately a draft dodger. And I remember Daddy said, let me say the blessing. It was just me and Daddy. We'd work the polls all day, and I was a political activist and everything. And he prayed. It was a real simple prayer. And he said, Lord, please don't let us lose our country. Mm-hmm. And I remember it was very profound for me because I remember looking across the table at him at 8220 Bennington Drive. And we were watching the election results on one of those crazy little bitty color TVs that we thought was the coolest thing in the world. It weighed about 200 pounds. And I remember looking at him thinking, man, this is breaking this guy's heart. He's a combat veteran. He's fought and killed people for this country. And it was very profound. And I would hope that's our prayer now, that we do not let this pass, because if we do, we will lose our country. We will lose our country. God has given us an incredible gift in Donald Trump. I don't want him teaching my daughter down at Baptist Sunday school class. That's not his job. He's the dadgum president of the United States. Ask people like Soleimani what they think of Donald Trump. You know why you can't ask Soleimani? Because he's dead. He's a freaking terrorist. And the way they identified him is freaking ring finger, because he had this crazy ring on there. And I've seen the classified pictures. That's the only way you could identify that joker, because his arm had been blown off and his freaking shin bone was up against a guardrail. And Trump took him out. He didn't ask Pelosi's permission. He didn't ask the freaking UN. He didn't ask Congress, who would have leaked it and the guy would have disappeared again. He took out a murdering thug. And that's the kind of leader we've got. And that's what we need in this in this country. And dadgummit, please, y'all, let's not blow it. Let's confirm every one of his dadgum picks, because we got to take our country back. King David, again, he was no freaking saint. He slept with Bathsheba. He had his best friend killed, his best general. And he was a dirtbag, but he had God's favor. And I think this country has God's favor right now. Let's not slap that hand away. Let's take this bull by the horns. Let's take our dadgum country back.
Yes. Just very briefly, truth and light is what you're talking about, and transparency and bringing things forward into the light of God. You did this yesterday with the UAP briefing. Can you just give our audience, because there was so much going on, we didn't give it enough time to talk about. And this Matt Gaetz decision, I want to really put the muscle to the wheel on this, because I think it's the most important decision in the Trump presidency. But very briefly, Congressman, what did you learn yesterday with your extraterrestrial UAP briefing? I know that there's on the record and off the record stuff. What can you tell us?
I didn't learn anything, actually. Everybody else probably did, and that's cool. I was glad questions were asked and answers were given, because, and there you see the Tic Tac videos and some of those that they claim don't exist. I sit and listen to these so-called intelligence people telling me they don't exist, but then when you ask them about stuff like that, they say, oh, we don't have the data on that. It's usually some little jerk with a man bun that's very arrogant and telling us what to think. But the reality is we're not alone. And every dadgum person up there last night, one of them was an admiral, for goodness sakes, who talked about a case that he was involved in. And we've got these undersea things that are going around faster than anything we can go, big as a football field. And too many of it's going on. The only way we're going to get the answers, the only way is total disclosure. And the only person with the guts to do that is Donald J. Trump. It's just an arrogance. It's a control thing. That's clearly not ours. If there was a human inside that, they'd be a ketchup package, because the G's, that thing's turning. I've talked to the pilots that were involved in that. You know, they claim they didn't exist, and they claim they were frauded. They were frauds. And then the pilots came out and said, in fact, no, that is us. That was us. And now the government says, well, they exist, but we don't know what they are. And now they're saying they don't exist again. But we're spending, look, the issue is we're spending tens of millions of your hard-earned tax dollars on this thing that they say don't exist. Every department, every major department has a division that's investigating these. And if they're investigating them, and they say they don't exist, where the heck is our tens of millions of dollars gone to? And so let's get to the bottom of it. President Trump's the guy on disclosure, the Kennedy files, everything else, Diddy, all that other stuff, Epstein. He will get to the bottom of it because he trusts. That's the one thing. He trusts the American people, and he gets them. When Trump, it drives Secret Service crazy. He sees a group of cops out on the side of the road he's driving by. They pull the limos over, and it drives him crazy because he's going to get out and shake their dadgum hands because he understands those are America. Those are the people that elected him. That's why the Teamsters love him, because, you know, he'll get out and cuss them in their face, and they get that. And they get the respect from him that they don't get from their bosses. And you're seeing that all across the country. That's why he won with bigger numbers than anybody. I can remember, it reminded me of as a kid when Reagan, they said, oh, it's questionable. And dadgum, he won every dadgum state except Minnesota. So, you know, it's pretty evident who's against us. Let's kick their butts.
Does the federal government have in its possession crafts, DNA, or life that is not of this world?
I think, here's my opinion on it. They're smart enough to put it in the hands of other people outside of quasi-government. So it's into these, there's 5 or 6 contractors, and we've been given their names, and, you know, it's like they're going to tell us where they're at as soon as they announce it. You know, the U-Haul vans have already been there a week ago and moving whatever they got. I think where it's at, it's so compartmentalized, and so many people have died since some of this stuff has been collected, that probably the people that are looking at it right now do not realize what they're looking at. They're either been told it's a foreign entity, or it's a piece of, look like a piece of metal maybe that has some capabilities, and they still haven't figured out how to break it down. It's very similar to if say if you took an Indian motorcycle, a brand new Indian, back to the people who came in on the Mayflower, you know, they would see that and they would say, wow, that's pretty cool. They would never be able to adjust fuel injection. They wouldn't know how to get inside of it. They couldn't even make the fuel. They might get it started, but that'd be about it. And you know, and I think that's what we're looking at. I also think that couldn't get to all the questions, but there are 5 deep sea areas. We know more about the surface of the moon than we do these areas. And Boebert scratched the surface of it. We only get 5 minutes, and, you know, they don't want these answers brought out too much. There are 5 deep sea areas, and there's a lot more, as they call it, activity. And I've talked to some people off the record about that, and the ability for these things that we've seen in the video, the one video where they fly under the water and then come out, we have nothing of that capability. So I think we ought to look at that. The ability of something to fly, you know, as I state, every night I go out with my dogs. They go to the bathroom. They won't go to the bathroom when I go to bed. They got to go at 4 o'clock in the freaking morning. So I'll go out there and look at those stars. And the stars, the light from those stars literally left that star before the time of Christ. So, I mean, you're talking about the vastness of God's universe. It is beyond our mental capacity. So the ability for something to travel that far, I think, is very difficult. I think something could be here that is not of our origin, if that makes sense to you, and is capable of submersing in these areas. And there's a lot of questions that need to be asked, and I'm getting into too much off the rails here on that. But I will let you know that it was a righteous committee. But every time you get to a really good answer, and I noted that in my questioning, I said, I asked that question because I knew he would answer. He would say, I cannot answer that. I'd have to give you that answer in a classified briefing, because I wanted the American public to know that So you automatically know the answer to that. If they say, are we in possession of this? And they say, I cannot answer that. I'd have to answer that in a classified setting. So that automatically tells you that, yes, in fact, we do have something. And whether it's from an archaeological dig, which has been told to me in the past, or from a crash site. But
yeah, you have witnesses saying that there are bodies and biologics that have been
I would say, if they get here, something's gonna have to fly the dadgum thing. So it's beyond our capabilities, and the more the government says they don't exist, and the way they throw up all these barriers to us, the more I would say we need to dig. But again, it's not about flying saucers or little green men. It's about, what are we spending tens of millions of dollars on? If they don't exist, why does every dadgum department have a division that investigates this? We even had testimony, and Gaetz will even tell you, we had testimony that said they have crash retrieval. Crash retrieval of what? So anyway, Trump is the man. If Trump, his people have said, we're going to have disclosure. Kennedy files, all this other stuff. Let's get it out.
So I just want to give you an opportunity on this program, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, Congressman, but very briefly at the end here. Speaking of just getting it out in full transparency, I have never seen you and Bigfoot in the same room together.
That is true.
And I know this went viral yesterday. Your Congresswoman Nancy Mace, your colleague on this.
Yeah.
I think that there's, potentially an opportunity for you here to just say, you know what, it's me, stomping through the Tennessee woods.
Well, I'm going to geek out real quick. That is actually a reversed frame 351 of Patterson Gimlin, which was 1967. So I would be 3 years old probably at that time. I would get up to about that thing's knee right there. That has probably been one of the most discussed photographs of Bigfoot ever. And that is, the one on the left is probably the hottest man in America, which would be me. That's in front of a buddy of mine's garage door. And they had they're Yankees, and they moved down to Tennessee because they had enough of Chicago, and they had a big fight. And the picture of Trump with his bloody ear, and he's holding it up, and they put it on their garage, across their garage, because one of their neighbors had put up a Kamala Harris sign, and man, it was unbelievable. It's quite a story there. Their mailbox got knocked over, and it's just quite a deal. But they're friends of mine.
Congressman, we're friends of yours, and we're deeply appreciative for you coming on the program. Everybody go follow Tim Burchett.
Hey,
167,000. Look at it, man, Congressman, you are cooking.
I am. Hey, I want to show you this. This is my Christmas party. It was 16 minutes last year. The year we did 15, and then it went to 16, but we figured it dragged too much, so we're back to 15 minutes this year. I would love to have you. And if you come after that, it's like Kmart. We're going to be blinking the lights and telling y'all to get the hell out of here. And we'll have Mountain Dew complimentary, and we're hoping to have our PB&J bar set back up. And I will be doing charcuterie, which is me walking around and you see the Cheese Whiz in my front pocket right there. I had Whitney put that on there. And I'll be walking around giving everybody charcuterie, which would be Cheese Whiz and crackers. And yes, if I had another child, I would name her Charcuterie. I think that'd be a cool name, Charcuterie Burchett. So you're the man, Benny. Love you, brother.
We wouldn't miss this party for the world. We'll be there, ladies and gentlemen. God bless you, Congressman. There is literally no way to respond to that other than yes, absolutely. That sounds like the greatest Christmas party ever.
Thank you for loving your little girls too, man. I have a little girl now; she's 17, but that warms my heart.
We got another one on the way. I can tell you, charcuterie is not in the not in the lexicon of names that my wife is considering. But
if it's a boy, Skeeter would be cool, because if he gets into trouble, that's just old Skeeter. That's Benny's boy.
God, everyone follow Tim Burchett. If you need any further motivation to do so, these last 3 minutes is perfect for you.
Right on.
Love you, Benny. Bigfoot. Say hey, it's Congressman.
Brother.
Godspeed. Sometimes you just never know. You never know what you're going to get. You could go from charcuterie to the reason, the full-throated endorsement of Matt Gaetz and what's going to happen to Republicans that don't vote for him, and then on to UFOs. And who's Bigfoot? You never know. You just absolutely never know. Yeah, that's right. Everybody, the team melting down here. Tim Burchett is in favor of all aliens coming to this country. They just have to do so legally. Ladies and gentlemen, we have just a wonderful series of guests here. Poor ALX built out this massive show, and we have too many incredible guests on the program that can vouchsafe for the Attorney General candidate for Donald Trump, Matt Gaetz. But if there's one man who can really, quite literally, see into the future, it is the great Mike Benz. Mike Benz is somebody who has, on this program, predicted the future time and time again. He predicted the Trump victory, but with certain guardrails, right? And one of those guardrails is going to be don't bash too hard into the deep state. Has that rail gone out the window? Or is it Washington, D.C. deep staters that will be run out of D.C. on a rail? We're not sure. But joining us live now, the great Mike Benz can answer these questions. Oh, Mike. This is our first time chatting since the Great Awakening of this nation. And look at that smile. I've never seen Mike Benz smile like that. You look like you're Joe Biden meeting Trump at the White House.
I look like I'm Joe Biden giving his resignation speech, actually. I've never seen Joe Biden smile that hard as the day Donald Trump defeated Kamala Harris.
You, among all men, would know probably more about the demonic freakout that is currently happening inside of our federal government institutions, specifically given the Matt Gaetz selection. Tulsi pissed him off. Pete Hegseth got him frustrated. But this Matt Gaetz decision has really sent them into the psych ward. Can you explain why?
I actually, we have the element of surprise. I think this was so shocking to them. It's shocking, frankly, to me, and I think even to the Trump base, who could only pick Matt Gaetz in a sort of fantasy draft. It's like the star player that everybody would sort of want in there, but you think, there's no way our team is going to get him. So we'll settle for something less based than Gaetz. So I'm still in a little bit of shock over it. And I think that the screams that we're starting to hear are frankly just the beginning of what is going to become an unbelievable campaign over the next 6 weeks. Frankly, and this is going to sound a little strange, but frankly, I don't want to say wish, but it may have been shrewder to have floated a more blob-like attorney general for 6 weeks, promising Gaetz on the back end this was going to happen, and then doing a last-minute switcheroo, because my concern is there is going to be a Dante's Inferno sized fire cloud rising out of the block of the DOJ building in Washington, just a few streets down from the Capitol building, because they are not going to allow a single book to remain intact with someone like Matt Gaetz there. I would not be surprised if ethics probes are crisis launched, if there's a promise for second, third, and fourth houses, as well as yachts and paid for private education for various pivot members of the Senate in order to block the confirmation. There is going to be a campaign like holy hell that will be raised against Gaetz, because this is probably the most powerful position in the cabinet, insofar as every other federal agency depends on the Justice Department's enforcement and the Justice Department's consent. And Gaetz is totally based, and he will be unleashed without mercy on corruption. So I think that this is such an incredible Thor hammer blow to the corrupt dark heart of the blob, that the next 24 hours, 48 hours, they're actually just going to be processing before they recoil and launch their counterattack. So we have about 24, 48 hours of champagne on this, I think, before it starts to get weird.
So this decision is obviously striking at the heart of President Trump being backstabbed by many of the people he chose and selected in the first term, and choosing somebody who he pretty much has a neural link with in Matt Gaetz. They actually have the same superhero origin story and the same crisis when you have federal agencies coming after both of them, lying, deceiving, doing illegal tactics to try and destroy them. And Matt Gaetz has been such a strong ally against institutionalism. And so you see this horror, and I think it's a genius move because, one, a lot of bureaucrats, just on the prospect of Gaetz being their boss, will self-deport. I do firmly believe that. You're already seeing these reports out of Politico saying they're burning the freaking ships right now on just the auspices of this potentially happening. And now you're seeing a lot of reporting out of the Senate saying, we don't have the will to fight this. If this is Trump's selection, what are we going to do? And so, Mike, what process could there possibly be to, I guess, prevent Matt Gaetz from getting the chair? And then what should Matt Gaetz do first when he gets it?
Well, I hope you're right on that. I saw a strange quote from Lindsey Graham as this was coming down, where Lindsey Graham expressed reticence about approving Matt Gaetz through the Senate, and Lindsey Graham voted to approve Merrick Garland. So that
they all did.
I mean,
they all did. Incredible. Merrick Garland got 70 votes. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. But the Republicans who approved Merrick Garland may not approve the Republican Matt Gaetz because they're in on it. But, another thing that's quite sort of troubling in the mix, it's for the most part, I've been doing, double backflip cartwheels like a 13-year-old gymnast, at some of these picks. But the fact is it is all very complicated by the John Thune appointment as Senate Majority Leader.
Yes.
That is an incredibly powerful position. The Senate Majority Leader is going to determine all of the committee assignments, which means all the other senators, in order to have a blossoming career in the Senate, are going to have to do favors for John Thune. John Thune has quite a checkered relationship, I would say, with one foot. Well, I mean, I wouldn't even say it's 1 foot in MAGA world and 1 foot in Rhino world. It's, for the most part, he is totally aligned with the blob, totally aligned with the establishment. I presume that this was basically Senate maneuverings that I doubt that the Trump inner circle gave the blessing to, but simply did not have the muscle, not being in power yet, that they got him in an emergency vote.
Yeah.
I mean, they expedited the process just to make this happen, and that will give the Senate the ability. I mean, there's only a 3-vote majority in the Senate to vis-a-vis the Democrats. I mean, does anyone think Mitt Romney is going to be approving this? All they need are 3 swing votes to hold all of this beautiful early Christmas up. And the fact is given who the Republicans nominated as the Senate Majority Leader, they probably could, and very well may intend to, which will be a sort of delayed October surprise. We may have a January surprise, but this could all be circumvented if we could get the recess appointments that Elon Musk, that Thomas Massie, that Donald Trump are all pushing for. But that's going to be another fight in the legislature in order to sort of realize the big, beautiful dreams that we are now starting to dream.
So what would be your big, beautiful dream for Matt Gaetz if he is to get the chair here?
Well, we've had the 4 most corrupt years of the Department of Justice in our country's history. This is a period that effectively has to be purged from institutional memory in the United States, because it was a full frontal assault on the entirety of the U.S. Constitution. You had, for example, on the prosecution space, the prosecutions of Donald Trump were the first time in our nation's history the Justice Department has ever targeted a president. the first time they ever sent the FBI to raid someone's home, the first time they ever put them through an indictment process, the first time they ever sought prison in an indictment, the first time they even worked with the states. If folks remember, the Justice Department sent their number 3 to the New York Attorney General's office, to the New York District Attorney's office, in order to help the federal Justice Department prosecute Donald Trump at the state level. Then you have all of the crimes and cover-ups around the January 6th prosecutions. The January 6th Fedsurrection was a total cover-up job, top to bottom, by this Justice Department. Everyone knows the reason that the FBI has not updated their public video file list. They said they had 39,000 video files on the pipe bomber. They altered the footage that they uploaded. They knocked it down to 1 frame per second. They cut the pipe bomber out right before the actual planting of the bomb. Unbelievable what they did there. And then not a single hair follicle disclosed, not a single skin cell from walking around the home court territory of the national security state on foot for 90 minutes, placing phone calls directly from the scene of the crime. We now have reporting from John Solomon's Just the News today, as well as from Congress, that it appears that there actually was cell phone data that was recoverable from the telecom companies of the text messages and phone activity of the pipe bomber. And the Justice Department simply lied and said that those files were corrupted. Mark my words, there's only one reason they have stopped the pipe bomber investigation, and that is because the pipe bomber is a Fed, or the pipe bomber was working with Feds, and they don't want to investigate or have a public prosecution because that would reveal the Fed network that effectuated the pipe bomb fraud. And imagine if Matt Gaetz is unleashed on that. Imagine the size of the scandal when it's publicly discovered that it was actually a federal informant or federal agent or a member of the U.S. military operating in a special deniable operation in tandem with the Justice Department or in tandem with DHS or the FBI, who was responsible for the threat of the mass casualty event on January 6th, whose discovery preceded the breach by 1 minute. 1 minute after the pipe bombs were discovered at the RNC, the perimeter was breached on January 6th. This is why the Capitol chief at the time, Stephen Sund, his explanation was that the pipe bombs were effectively a decoy in order to divert the Capitol Police and DC Metropolitan Police resources to the actual threat, a mass casualty event, which, by the way, somehow the DC Fusion Cell, run by DHS, had apparently 3 days advance notice of. Insofar as they literally called all of the hospitals around DC and said, stock up on extra blood because we're expecting a potential mass casualty event. And then somehow the acting Attorney General, Jeffrey Rosen, was 3 days before that same day, January 3rd, 2017, had ran a special exercise involving the DHS as well as military folks and FBI folks from Quantico, because they were expecting what they said a potential weapon of mass destruction at the Capitol on January 6th. Well, you know what the technical term for a pipe bomb is in Justice Department parlance is? It's a weapon of mass destruction. That is what the Whitmer Fed-napping plot folks were convicted of. So how did they know? How did the Justice Department know? Well, the fact is if you see smoke tonight lighting up your sunset, if you live in the DMV area, those are the files of January 6th. Those are the iDrives of the pipe bomber investigation lighting up the night sky. So there's going to be, there's going to be marshmallows and barbecue that the whole city will be able to stick a marshmallow out your window, and you will be able to have what's left of the January 6th files of the Justice Department tonight.
I can't see a world where Trump wouldn't, let's say the Gaetz appointment gets fraught. Okay, worst case scenario. I can't see a world where Trump would appoint somebody who wouldn't do that, who wouldn't do the disclosures. So much of President Trump, his own personal interviews and then the interviews of people close to him have been about disclosure and transparency. There's DNA on the cocaine found at the White House, Mike. There's DNA on it. Somebody was shoving their nose inside the cocaine. So you've been to the White House. You worked in the White House. I've been to the White House. You don't walk in the White House with cocaine. It's actually impossible unless you're like a family member.
Well, unless you're on cocaine.
Well, yeah, I mean, sure. So it's like they know, bro. Like they have it at Quantico. They know whose it was. They have DNA inside the cocaine. I can't imagine a world where President Trump doesn't just begin declassifying and releasing this information to the American people. And then the question that remains is, will there ever be any credibility? The credibility that will then be gone, right? The moment that you find out that the pipe bomber was a Fed, then all credibility for the Justice Department, the FBI, DHS, everybody, Homeland Security, Special Investigations, all these people, it's gone. It atomizes. In that moment, the moment somebody walks to a dais with a federal logo on it and says the pipe bomber was one of us, it's gone. It's atomizes, right? It is the Manhattan Project event. And then you must be. I guess the next question is, what happens after that? Because I think that's going to happen, Mike. I can't see a world where it doesn't.
Well, if all the evidence is destroyed, I mean, what do you think all of the prosecutors and assistant prosecutors and third-party contractors are doing tonight? You think they're going to happy hour at 5 p.m. if they've been working the pipe bomber investigation, or do you think they're doing the marshmallow party? I think we all know the answer to that, and I think that they are going to make a strategic calculus.
Data's never fully gone, man. The data's never fully gone. I don't know.
Well,
man.
The FBI has a lot of tricks on this. If folks are familiar with the famous iDrive and the ability to simply shift files into a sort of temporary database that then evaporates. They've done this many, many times. That's why I always say the FBI is where evidence goes to die. They have one very special skill, which is destroying evidence. Have you ever wondered why it is there were 23 video cameras around the Oklahoma City FBI building in 1995, and you've never seen footage of the Oklahoma City bombing explosion? You've seen the after picture taken by third-party reporters. Well, when Jesse Trentadue brought that case against the Justice Department, they claimed all 23 of the cameras magically malfunctioned, and they were moved over into a secret iDrive that automatically deleted the remaining footage. The same thing with the malfunctioning of the tapes, for example, with the Jeffrey Epstein story, the same thing. I mean, there's so many examples of this. It's crazy. If folks want to watch a great documentary by CNN on Whitey Bulger, the famous head of the mafia in Boston, who was revealed to be an FBI informant the whole time, which was why he was allowed for 30 years to run the entire organized criminal network in Boston, the FBI actually kept two separate sets of records. One which had his crime sheet, and this is the one they disclosed to Congress. And then 30 years later, it turned out that the actual special agent in charge of the Boston FBI field office had the same document they gave to Congress, but with an addendum at the end about all of his federal informant status and everything that he had done there. So this is like an Enron-style accounting fraud, where they keep multiple sets of books and they can hand one to one person or to the inspector general or to Congress, and they can say, these are our files, and they look like files. But the fact is the people who are in the small compartmentalized top secret, above top secret, TSSCI class, they will have the actual files with all their dirty little deeds. And those are the ones I suspect that will be lighting up the night sky in D.C. I will say one other thing, which is that I hope that you're right about the loss of credibility that should come from the public disclosure of the sheer scale and magnitude of the January 6th Fedsurrection, potentially the Epstein investigation, which the previous attorney general happened to have a very direct connection with, given that Bill Barr was effectively family friends with the Epstein family and had come up in his career by working directly at the CIA, being put through law school effectively by the CIA, and then being the CIA mop-up man for Iran-Contra and after. But the fact is, time does do strange things to let, let the air out of the whoopee cushion slowly. I mean, the fact is our new nominee for the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, I just posted this on my X timeline today, was publicly saying that Russia bombed their own pipeline, the Nord Stream pipeline, as those events were happening. Now, Marco Rubio was the chairman at the time of the Senate Intelligence Committee. He oversaw the CIA. He was also on the board of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee overseeing the State Department. But so he surely knew what the CIA records were around the Nord Stream pipeline. We now know, thanks to not just the German German National Police that disclosed the Ukrainian diving teams that blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, but we now know that the CIA had at least advanced knowledge, because the formal story now told by the CIA to the New York Times is that we knew the Ukrainians were going to blow up the Nord Stream pipeline. We tried to stop them by sending a message to a general, but the general didn't deliver it to the diving teams. So Marco Rubio knew that it wasn't the Russians. Marco Rubio knew it was us. That should be a massive scandal. The fact is time does strange things. If that had happened in the moment, if the week after or 6 months after or a year after even, that New York Times article had come out, that German police investigation with the indictments had come out, that would have been a massive scandal. But 3 years later, 4 years later, things sort of
mellow out.
Puff.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly
you have to
right.
catch them in the act.
Most people wouldn't even be able to tell you what Nord Stream is. It was the hottest topic for a good month. That's what everyone talked about. But right now, people would say, what? I can't even remember that. Yeah, it's true. Okay, so speaking of disappearing things from the internet, I can't, Mike, I got to ask you about censorship. This has got to be, I mean, the censorship industry has got to be considering, like, you know, checking itself in for suicide watch at this point. There's no way, you know, can you talk me through that landscape right now? You're hearing a lot of saber rattling from incoming administration, being staffed by guys like Elon Musk about government-funded censorship regime. Where do they stand right now?
Cornered dogs do desperate things. And what you're going to see is actually an attempt to upscale the censorship by tapping into very, very dark sources to do it. So I'm expecting a twofold strategy in the months and years ahead. Internally within the U.S., you are going to see states attempt to do what was previously attempted to do by individual federal agencies. So I expect to see the states of California, Illinois, New York, Washington, Oregon pass a flurry of state-level legislation simulated after this, you know, sort of AI. If folks remember, the state of California attempt to make it a crime to post a meme that had AI satire around elections. You're going to see already California has passed what they called, you know, transparency and accountability laws for social media in order to get internal access so that they can do disinformation monitoring and to flag to the state effectively hate speech incidents so that there can be a real-time monitor on those sorts of things. Basically, they're going to, and combined with other initiatives around digital resilience, media literacy, information integrity, in order to make those states inhospitable or effectively make that information inaccessible in those states. For example, the mandatory media literacy laws passed in California, Illinois, and New York last year make it mandatory in K through 12 school for all students in all public schools to go through these mental brainwashing courses where they're told that they are not allowed to cite Breitbart News, they're not allowed to cite the Benny Johnson Show, they're not allowed to cite OAN or Tim Pool or you name it, because those are low credibility news sources. And so you need to report to the teacher what news sources you're going to cite in advance. It's not about literacy, can you read or not? It's about, are you reading the right sources of media? So that is now already mandatory in those states by law. And what you're going to see is an upscale of the infrastructure on top of that in order to effectively pick a market winner in the social media space. That may be, for example, something like Mark Zuckerberg's Threads, or it could be something like Blue Sky, the Twitter alternative, or it could be, it could just be simply YouTube style, confines. They will try to find a market champion who censors the Trump movement, who censors the populist movement, who censors the Elon Musk network, and make that the only thing accessible on public Wi-Fi. Make that the only thing that in a public institution you are allowed to cite or refer to as evidence in research papers. You're going to see all those little tricks on the inside. But most significantly, they are going to go straight to Downing Street. They're going to go straight to the UK Foreign Office, and they will run back on steroids the operation they ran after Trump won because of social media the first time in 2016. This is what I always call the transatlantic flank attack. I'm telling you right now, there's going to be an international roadshow. The people who are at the State Department right now, the people who have been coordinating this worldwide orchestra of censorship laws in the EU, in Brazil, in Australia, they are not going to be going into early retirement. They are going to take their special set of skills, which is back-channeling deals with foreign diplomats in order to implement foreign laws to impact U.S. companies and U.S. individuals and U.S. political movements. And they are going to be cutting deals. They will be using George Soros money for that. You'll be using the whole influence, DNC money machine, and they will be doing shadow diplomacy with Europe, with Latin America, with Australia, with Central Asia. They are going to try to balkanize the planet, and they will impose exactly the kind of penalties on X and on Facebook if Zuckerberg decides to free the Meta. You see what in the EU, the punishment for not complying with their disinformation laws under this new NATO censorship law is not just 6% of revenue coming from the EU. It's 6% of global revenue for X. So every dollar of premium that's sold here in the US, every ad sale that X generates as revenue here in the US or in Tunisia or in Zanzibar or in Colombia or on the moon, if Elon is able to establish this is an interplanetary fine essentially, and 6% of it, that is absolutely massive. That's approximately the average profit margin of a blue chip company. So it will be bankrupting if that is enforced. And the only thing that can stop that is Senator Marco Rubio, now going to be Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And then Australia is now this week voting on their misinformation law. Oh, the model legislation for that, by the way, was written by First Draft, which is the technical implementer of the State Department's primary censorship program. So effectively, the U.S. State Department set up Australia's misinformation law. I should note it gives godlike powers to their Australian e-safety commissioner, who publicly bragged that she was recruited to be a CIA operations officer right out of college. So you have an American CIA track head of censorship in Australia, and an Australian censorship law that was effectively written, the model legislation for it was written by the technical implementer of the CEPS program, the main censorship program at state. So we've simply parasited the parliament of Australia, and that penalty imposes a 5% global revenue fine on X if they don't comply. 5% from Australia, 6% from the EU. They're going to try to stack up an Alex Jones style judgment in regulatory fines against X that they effectively, that the Onion can buy X because of how deep in debt it will be. And this will be back channeled by the shadow diplomats at state and aid and the National Security Council, the whole blob foreign policy establishment of the Obama, Biden, Harris lineage. So that is a major, major thing to watch for. And Marco Rubio has a lot of work to do in order to combat that.
in closing here, how do you combat that? Because, of course, that is clearly an existential threat to what brought us to this moment. A corner dog is very, very dangerous. Yet, if put to heel, that dog will eventually behave. I hear J.D. Vance, the clip of J.D. Vance saying, why would we be in a NATO partnership with people who are against our Constitution? That's antithetical to being in a military partnership with somebody if they stand against your core values, including your First Amendment. So that seems like a pressure point that could be easily operable. Major
one. The fact is free speech diplomacy has been at the bedrock of our diplomatic and intelligence and statecraft toolkit for now coming up on 80 years. We have long used the carrots and sticks of the American empire to influence the domestic legislation of foreign countries to make them more consistent with American values. For example, on the carrot side, there is $50 billion worth of aid that is distributed every year by USAID. That goes to Brazil. We spent $220 million giving aid to Brazil. Well, take that away day one until their misinformation laws are torn down and the TSE censorship court has its disinformation task force disbanded. Then you have trade. You have billions of dollars in trade. You have tariffs. You can do it by industry. You can do it by energy. There are all sorts of things that you can log roll in order to make them wealthier and improve their economic development by deepening ties if they get rid of the speech restrictions. And there are all sorts of ways to apply sticks, such as through sanctions, such as through renegotiation of existing treaties, existing trade agreements. I would say you may even go farther than such things as participation in NATO, unless the EU Digital Services Act removes its disinformation compliance, which, by the way, should be the day one negotiating posture of the White House, of the Defense Department, of the State Department, of USAID, of the intelligence services, because it's way more important for us to be in NATO to them than for them to maintain this barely a year old in terms of its operation disinformation compliance component of a EU regulatory law. These are major institutions who are afraid of major surgery. But it's not like the entire institution is corrupt in many of these cases. Oftentimes, it is just a rogue cell. It is a small part of it that started off as a cancer, in the earlobe, or a cancer, in some inflamed lymph node in an armpit. But it's turned into a cancer that is metastasized into the brain and the lungs. But if you can effectively cut deals that say, listen, we will forestall major surgery if you simply cut out, but ruthlessly and completely, these rogue cells, you will be able to apply an incredible amount of leverage to get this stuff shut down. You also need to defund it completely. And I am honored, privileged, and delighted to say that late next week, I will be releasing a comprehensive list of every single government agency and every single government program, initiative, and task force within every government department that has an ongoing in-process role in internet censorship. And this White House or policymakers or interested citizens can use that as effectively a treasure map for every single dollar that can be cut to dismantle this, because they say that this is hearts and minds work, convincing foreign governments to pass internal censorship legislation. But it's hearts and minds and cash. You take the cash out, they have far less carrots and sticks to offer those governments. And this White House will be in the dominant slot to be able to combat the shadow government.
That's clearly what's been operating the country for the last couple decades. It's clearly what Barack Obama just engaged in. Pelosi's engaging in it right now. I think McConnell's engaging in it in the Senate, where the leaders step back and then operate the entire institutions from the shadows. And it's antithetical to democracy, and it has to end. We must cut it out, root and stem. Mike Benz is one of those guys who, cuts with a scalpel and then with a cleaver, and we're very excited to see what he does in the next couple of years against his arch enemy, the censorship industrial complex. One of the few guys who's actually spoken out against this and actually brought it to the forefront of the nation and to the forefront of the minds of those in charge of the Trump administration right now. And we know that they're listening to Mike. You should too. Follow him on X. Here's Mike's account. 500,000 Americans. Can't be wrong. Whoa, Mike. 500K, brother.
Well, Benny, you're killing it. Your numbers are incredible, and there's a reason why. You're the man. So thanks so much for having me today. And I'm excited to give you the treasure map next week. And
yes,
maybe
that's
we can
right.
talk
Come
about
back
it
on.
then.
I'm sure it'll be up on X. Also, his foundation here. Let's go ahead and give a Freedom Foundation Online shout out.
Yes, that's a great new report we just published, by the way. This is on because I mentioned that they will be going directly to Downing Street. They'll be going directly to Keir Starmer at the UK labor movement leader, now head of the country, and who is very, very active in this space, works directly with the State Department on this. They have the power to implement this. And so we have a new report on basically the U.S. State Department intelligence and White House connections to the entity that explicitly made it its goal to, quote, kill Musk's Twitter. And so that's fresh off the press this week. But anyway, we'll talk next week, I hope. All
right. Well, good luck against Doge. Maybe you got some your roadmap, Mike. Will be a treasure map or maybe potentially a target map for Doge, I think.
Well, we're going to drive a monster truck down that road. So
yeah, brother.
The roadmap will be highly interactive.
We're excited about it. Godspeed, Mike. Where to go, baby? Where to go? Well, it's such an exciting moment. You're going to be able to see in real time on this program your new government forming. You're going to be able to see the policies. And he's too humble. Mike was head of cyber at State Department. Mike knows this. Mike was the head of cyber at the State Department. He was tasked with dismantling this, and he was stopped by he was physically stopped by the deep state from doing it. So Mike knows of which he speaks, ladies and gentlemen. And we're very, very excited to play, at the very least, a very small note in this formation of the new government, including, but not limited to, some breaking news out from last night, which is that news that was first seeded on this program a couple days ago by Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna has now blossomed into a beautiful Florida palm tree with its whatever is the opposite of when Kamala Harris says, you fall out of a coconut tree. It's that, okay? Whatever's the opposite of that is what's happening right now with Laura Trump, okay? Definitely not falling out of a coconut tree, but as somebody who's ready to represent the state of Florida. We have this confirmed from the highest possible level sources. And also, Laura Trump will be joining the program quite soon to talk about it. We're working on that right now. So, ladies and gentlemen, here's Rick Scott saying, do you think that Laura Trump should be Florida's next senator? Holy moly. Last night on Sean Hannity's show, Laura Trump answered for the first time about being the next senator from the state of Florida. Of course, this would be a Ron DeSantis appointment. Here's what Laura Trump had to say.
To be able to serve in this role has really been the honor of a lifetime. Likewise, if I am able to serve, I would love to serve the people of Florida. This is my home state now and has been for 3 years. This is where Eric and I live. And truly to have that opportunity, I think would be incredible. No one knows better than I do the America First agenda or the goals of Donald Trump in the coming 4 years. So if I am asked, I would love to consider it, but I have yet to have a conversation with Governor DeSantis. So we will have to see.
So we'll see. We'll see. Balls in your court, as they say. Lord Trump. Lord Trump is a friend of the program, and I can tell you definitively, and from the highest possible level sources, that this is something that they are very interested in. And this is something that we are very interested in. I think that it's time that we have somebody in the Senate that doesn't look like they're about to croak on a country club golf course I think it's time that we have somebody in the Senate that represents the young and dynamic, under 40-year-old. No offense to anybody who's of any age in this audience. We know we reach a lot of people, but the people who won it for Donald Trump was not 65 plus. 65 plus voted for Kamala to their great shame. It was actually millennials, Gen Z, that swung hard, and Gen X, by the way, huge shout out to Gen X, who voted in a absolute preponderance majority for Trump. Gen Z swinging hard for Trump, millennials swinging crazy for Trump by the largest percentage margin, winning Gen Xers overall. It is this under 50 and under 40 demo that Laura Trump represents. She's a parent, she's dynamic, she's energetic, athletic. How many senators could climb a flight of stairs? It'd be nice to have that represented, because that's actually the makeup of the country, is young, energetic, optimistic people. But especially in the state of Florida, freaking drive around down here. Everyone's jogging, working out. It's a dynamic place, and Laura Trump represents that energy. It'd be nice to have a young, fit mother who's like a mother of young children, like representing in the Senate. Wouldn't it be? It'd be nice to have that, because that's actually how you drive a country forward. You must have, every husband wants their wife to be like a fit, in shape mom that can like protect their children and defend the culture for their children. It's like freaking awesome. Every husband wants that. Every mother wants to be that. And so Laura Trump, on this moment of electricity around MAHA, around making the country healthy and not poisoning our children and loving our children more than we hate each other, Laura Trump's it, baby. Laura Trump's it. Don't even try to drag me some corpse from the many country clubs of Florida wearing their stupid pastels with their whatever real estate empire. I don't care. I don't care. No. I think Laura Trump's right. And also, the Trump name has, of course, brought such great prestige and power to this state. It'd be nice to have it sort of crystallized. Trump will be out in 4 years. It'd be nice to have it crystallized there in the Senate as a voice. And boy, talk about an institution in need of reform, ladies and gentlemen. So it'd be really neat. It'd be really neat to see. And we're honored by you giving this program the kind of pedigree where people come on here and call us up. They're like, we want to break some news, right? We want to break some news. And we know that this is the audience to do it. So great respect for you out of Washington, D.C. You saw Matt Gaetz on our program a couple of weeks ago. Jeez, Alex, it was like a couple of weeks ago. Gaetz was on for like 90 minutes, just chewing it up, right? On the program. We were just sitting there on a picnic table, pretty much. We'd flip the camera on and just let her rip as a hurricane ripped through Florida. And we found, since we were in the Panhandle, a great time to talk with the future Attorney General. Matt Gaetz gives 0 Fs about wokeism or political correctness. Here's one reason why you should like him. It's probably our favorite Matt Gaetz clip. Here we go.
Is it safe to say that based off of your comments, you're suggesting that these women at these abortion rallies are ugly and overweight?
Yes.
What do you say to people who think that those comments are offensive?
Be offended.
Mm-hmm.
So excited for that energy in Washington, D.C. Yes, these people are unhappy orcs, and they should we actually wish for them to find joy in life, and we're going to ensure that they do, because they've been lied to, and a parasitic mind virus has controlled them for too long. It's almost like a spell or like a demonic possession. Matt Gaetz has been the #1 person driving forward in the Congress truth on many fronts, but certainly about Hunter Biden's laptop. Ooh, baby. My favorite congressional Matt Gaetz clip ever, right here.
So where is it? The laptop.
Sir, I'm not here to talk about the laptop. I'm here to talk about the FBI cyber program.
You are the assistant director of FBI cyber. I want to know where Hunter Biden's laptop is. Where is it?
Sir, I don't know that answer.
That is astonishing to me. Has FBI cyber assessed whether or not Hunter Biden's laptop could be a point of vulnerability, allowing America's enemies to hurt our country?
Sir, the FBI cyber program is based off of what's codified in Title 18, Section 1030, a code which talks about computer intrusions, right, using nefarious intent network.
Well, you've talked about passwords here. I mean, Hunter Biden's password on his laptop was Hunter02. He drops it off at a repair store. I'm holding the receipt from Max Computer Repair, where in December 2019, they turned over this laptop to the FBI. And what now you're telling me right here is that as the assistant director of FBI Cyber, you don't know where this is after it was turned over to you 3 years ago.
Yes, sir, that's an accurate statement.
How are Americans supposed to trust that you can protect us from the next colonial pipeline if it seems that you can't locate a laptop that was given to you 3 years ago from the first family, potentially creating vulnerabilities for our country? I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record of this committee the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop, which I'm in possession of.
I love I love like youngling Mike Johnson standing up. Oh, yes, I'll do it. Okay, well then, Mike Johnson, now's the time for action. We'll see. We'll see what they do. Steve Bannon says, I don't trust Mike Johnson. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll wait and see. We know this. Here's what happened when Matt Gaetz grilled his, well, potentially the man who currently holds the chair in the DOJ, Merrick Garland. We'll see the predecessor versus the future. Matt Gaetz versus Merrick Garland. Let's go.
Did you ever have a family member profit off of the notoriety of any case that you sat over?
Say again, you're asking
yes or no?
me, you're asking me to comment on a case currently.
Well, it seems you're connecting the dots, Mr. Attorney General. I'm just asking you as to a general principle, but you are aware that Judge Merchan's daughter was profiting off of this prosecution. You are aware that that creates the appearance of impropriety. You know the very reason there's a federal rule against judges giving donations is because it is the very attack on the judicial process that we're concerned about.
I'm sorry, I don't agree with anything you just said, but I'm not going to comment on it.
Okay, so you won't comment on it, Mr. Attorney General, but you had no problem dispatching Matthew Colangelo. Who's Matthew Colangelo?
That is false. I did not dispatch Matthew Colangelo.
Matthew Colangelo became the Assistant Attorney General at the very beginning of the Biden administration. Without having been Senate confirmed, goes and gets this senior role at the DOJ, and then after, I believe it's Gupta replaces Colangelo, Colangelo makes this remarkable downstream career journey from the U.S. Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., and then pops up in Alvin Bragg's office to go get Trump. And you're saying that's just a career choice that was made that has nothing to do with the lawfare coordinated by the DOJ.
I'm saying it's false. I did not dispatch Mr. Colangelo anywhere.
Well, do you know how he ended up there?
I assume he he applied for a job there and got the job.
But see, you know what?
I can tell you I had nothing to do with it.
Well, you might not have had anything to do with it, but we've got this contemporaneous evidence in Mr. Pomerantz's book. So Pomerantz writes this book, which I'm sure you're aware of, where he says, we put together the legal eagles to get Trump. We got all these folks together and we assembled them for that purpose. And so when we on the Judiciary Committee think about attacks on the judicial process, our concern is that the facts and the law aren't being followed. A target is acquired, here, Trump, and then you assemble the legal talent from DOJ, Mr. Pomerantz, and you bring everybody in to get him. And meanwhile, the judge is making money on it. The judge is making money on it, or the judge's family is making money on it for stuff that you yourself wouldn't do. You know, no one's going to buy this. No one's going to believe it. It's going to create great disruption. And I am saddened by it because, like you, I have given my life to the law. I care deeply about the law, and I think that the lawfare we've seen against President Trump will do great damage well beyond our time in public service. I see my time's expired. I yield back.
Matt Gaetz is the right man for Attorney General. Matt Gaetz is the right man for Attorney General. They're going to try this pressure campaign against Matt Gaetz. He is the man. We know him personally. He spends hours on the show with us. He cares about this audience. He cares about you. This is the right man to be the top law enforcement official in the country. And if you need any further evidence, just one final clip here on Matt. The shock is intense from CNN. Here we go.
The shock is intense. That is how one source describes to CNN the reaction from inside the Department of Justice now to the news that Donald Trump has tapped Matt Gaetz to be the next Attorney General of the United States.
Can't help but play it. Our friend, our dear friend, somebody who clearly has higher brain functioning than Joe Biden. He's survived. He's out-survived Joe Biden, John Fetterman from Pennsylvania. Although the way Pennsylvania is going, I don't think John Fetterman will win in re-election, saying that Donald Trump is engaged in God-level trolling of Democrats and owning the libs. Apparently, John Fetterman watches the show. We should invite him on. Invite him on. He goes on Fox. Let's go.
I mean, I would describe it as God tier level trolling to just trigger a full-on China syndrome to own the libs in perpetuity.
Fact check true. Okay, fact check true. 100% agreement. 100%. The amazing Ashley works on our team. She's going to hate it because she lives in Philly, but 100% agreement with the Democrat senator there from Pennsylvania. Yes, this is God tier level trolling. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Very sad to report to you that Alina Habba has said she will not be the press secretary of the White House. You never know how these things go, but Alina Habba has said, just some breaking news out of the ecosystem of what's going on with Trump. No, Alina Habba says to press secretary, although she has been teasing that out. So this is her decision. She does have 3 little children. This is a demanding job. Kash Patel for FBI. I don't know. Here's what a man very, very powerful in Donald Trump world has to say about it. Elon Musk saying 100 to ALX. See, ALX and I have this really special relationship with the Musk family where where Elon and ALX are homies and I get to be homies with May Musk. Okay? So take that, ALX. All right? Take that. May Musk responding and reposting pretty much everything on our timeline and Elon responding or posting everything on ALX's timeline. We got all the bases covered here, okay? Elon Musk saying yes to Kash Patel. Elon Musk is at the table, let's just say at the table when it comes to these decisions. So we'll wait and see, right? We'll wait and see. FBI. Full cabinet as of now. Let's go ahead and look. J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Matt Gaetz for Attorney General, Pete Hegseth, Kristi Noem, Homeland Security, Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence, Mike Walls, Director, National Security Advisor, John Ratcliffe, CIA Director, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin, Elise Stefanik as the Ambassador to the United Nations, White House Counsel Bill McGlinty, Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, Border Czar Tom Homan, Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee, Government Efficiency Advisor Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, Middle East Envoy Steve Witkoff. And then James Blair, Jan Scavino, and Taylor Bundowich. ALX, pretty much the whole White House and government has been on the show. Probably 90% of that list, and some of these people don't do media, right? Some of these people, have operational capacities. Pretty much, like 90% of that list has been on the show. Freaking awesome, ladies and gentlemen. We're so excited for this moment. We're excited to bring you that the energy, and it is our single and only obligation and obsession. And so we will be heading tomorrow to Mar-a-Lago for some meetings. We're going to find out more. It's going to be this is going to be very special. If we meet Donald Trump, I will be asking. I'll be asking to do the Trump dance with him. I've been working on it, and that's what I want. I want to. It seems vain, but I want a TikTok of doing the Trump dance with Trump. Aiden Ross has got one. I'm very jealous of that, and so that's what I'm going to be gaming for. What will we ask him? What will we ask him? What are we going to ask Trump? We'll that's for our Ask Benny segment tomorrow. Like, let me know what you think. What should we ask Trump? We'll see. We'll see. Philippians 1:28 for our verse of the day. Don't be afraid of your enemies. Always be courageous. And this will prove to them that they will lose and you will win. Because it is God who gives you the victory. What a great verse, man. That's a fantastic verse. Yeah. How many times do we say in the absolute darkness of the last 4 years that we will win? And we always end our show with a Bible verse in order to anchor this place with the force that is truly in charge, right, of our lives, our universe. It is God. And so this is why we have such confidence. Quick, very, very quick aside. I got so many doomer texts in the lead up to this election. So many doomer texts. I'm sure you did too. People were nervous. People couldn't sleep. They were like on pins and needles. And my response to every single one of them is God's got us. Man, God's got a plan. God's got a plan. God's in control. God's got a plan. We got it. We got this. We got this. We got this. We said it on the show. We said it publicly and privately. I got to tell you, like that is the courage that God gives you when you follow his word and what he has laid down here on earth. That is the definition of faith, and you live a much better life with it, okay? So from personal experience, let me tell you. Ladies and gentlemen, say thank you for supporting our program. We're just so excited for this moment to be here. We're not letting the brake. We're not letting our hand, off the brake. The train has no brakes. It has no more wheels. We are just full speed ahead. It's going to be exciting. Please join us. Become brigade members at BennyJohnson.com. Become a member here. Or subscribe on X or on YouTube. We're very deeply, profoundly thankful for your support and for you just watching and viewing every single day. We've been setting record after record after record after record. This is the grand central station for our movement and what we do moving forward. And we're so proud, ladies and gentlemen, of this audience, the work that we're doing. March with us, full speed ahead. It's your boy, Benny. We're going to win. See ya.
On your left.
Those that want people to believe that you want retribution, that you will use the system of justice to go after your political enemies.
Maybe smash a few things along the way.
And there's no turning back, you understand?
Yes, I do.
Criminal officers! Get your hands in the air! All this stuff is impounded. You got a warrant. Sure, here's my warrant.
The better half of the 20s was a period of excessive sodium for the corrupt left-wing Marxists. The President and Attorney General created an oversupply of bootleg liberal tears. Project 2025 demanded they be destroyed.